Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your stack of sources and really pull out the most fascinating nuggets of knowledge and insight. Today, you've challenged us with a deep dive into Alejandro Suárez Sánchez-Ocaña's book, Desnudando a Google. We're going on a, let's say, revealing journey into the story behind Google. It's surprising, sometimes unsettling.
Indeed. And while many of us know the romantic origin story of Sergey Brin, Larry Page, the garage of this material gives us that red pill moment. Like in The Matrix, it asks, how deep does the rabbit hole go? So our mission here is to uncover the less talked about stuff, privacy, monopoly, ethics, things Google might prefer we didn't look at too closely.
Absolutely. And this isn't about pushing conspiracy theories or saying they're evil. It's just looking beyond the shiny Disney image. I mean, the author himself started out as a huge Google fan, right? But he ends up calling it a love-hate relationship. We want to explore why. Okay, so let's unpack the very beginning. We all know the story, the iconic one. Two brilliant Stanford students, Brin and Page, launching Google in '98. But what was really driving these nerds, as the author calls them, what was their actual ambition?
That's a great place to start. Larry Page had this incredibly audacious vision to order all the information in the world. I mean, it was so grand back then, he might have sounded, frankly, demented. Their key innovation, PageRank, it was revolutionary. It essentially thought like an internet user.
How so?
Well, it ranked pages objectively by how many important pages linked to them. It wasn't just about keywords, it was about authority, way beyond the simple directories like Yahoo had, which were often, manually put together.
And we have to remember, you couldn't just throw money at search back then. It wasn't seen as a huge business yet. The internet was still pretty new territory. Early search engines like Alta Vista, pretty basic. But here's where it gets really juicy. Their first project, Backrub, was for Stanford. And the author points out they apparently borrowed things like hard drives, processors, from university labs.
Yeah, that detail about borrowing. The author suggests this mania of borrowing what isn't yours still forms part of Google Inc.'s DNA.
Wow. That's quite a statement. It hints at a pattern, maybe.
It definitely suggests a certain foundational attitude towards resources and rules. And expanding on that, their early success wasn't just the idea. It was also, weirdly, their main stroke of luck. Their concept got rejected a lot. They couldn't find customers. And that pressure forced them to build something truly exceptional.
Until Andy Bettelheim stepped in.
Exactly. He wrote that famous $100,000 check in '98, even before the company was officially formed. Turned into, $1.7 billion by 2011? The author really highlights Bechtolsheim, this crazy investor, as a crucial cornerstone, maybe just as much as their romantic young men.
It's fascinating how those early days really forged the company culture. They grew incredibly fast, right? From the garage to University Avenue. And then there's that famous motto, don't be evil. It wasn't some lofty mission statement, was it?
Not at all. It came from an early employee, Paul Bischheit, during a meeting. And the meeting was specifically about potentially exploiting advertising data.
So it was more like an internal warning, like, hey, let's not go down that road.
Precisely. It speaks volumes that it came up right when they were discussing commercial opportunities. And their initial strategy, compensating people heavily with stock options, super risky, usually fails.
But not for Google.
Not for Google. It made early employees millionaires and created this incredibly motivated, almost, cult-like workforce. But the big financial pivot, the thing that really set them on the path to dominance, was AdWords in 2000. That self-service ad platform was a game changer.
And the deal with Yahoo right after that?
Oh, yeah. Google becoming Yahoo's search provider. The author calls it a grave error for Yahoo, a total capitulation, like Pepsi deciding to sell Coke, basically.
Unbelievable. And the author credits Eric Schmidt, the CEO until 2011, as the authentic brain in the shadows, the one who steered them to that massive financial success.
Yeah, guiding them to, over $29 billion in revenue by 2010. That's comparable to the GDP of some countries. Schmidt was key to that business scaling.
So from just search, Google exploded. Andy Grove's quote about them being a steroidoped company with a finger in every industry seems pretty apt. They bought over 100 companies between 2004 and 2011. Just became the empire of the internet. But okay, what's the real cost of all these free services we use?
Well, that's the core question, isn't it? Their strategy was simple. Buy people and buy ideas, as long as they are good. And they expanded rapidly. Think about Gmail in 2004, offering 7 GB of storage? Competitors like Hotmail were tiny in comparison and full of ads.
I remember the hype. People were auctioning Gmail invites online.
Exactly. The book mentions invites going for hundreds of dollars. It just shows the incredible demand for what felt like a superior free product.
But they weren't all hits, were they? What about Orkut?
Right, Orkut. Their social network attempt in 2004, a major fiasco, pretty much everywhere except Brazil and India. Maybe it just didn't catch on or couldn't compete. And even Google Plus in 2011, despite a big launch, Eric Schmidt himself apparently called it little more than a large advertising database.
Ouch. So even their social stuff was ultimately about the data.
It certainly suggests a tension there. Which leads to the question, if knowledge is valuable, what does Google do with the knowledge it gets from us? Take Google Analytics. They bought Urchin, made it free. Incredibly useful tool, no doubt. But the author's point is stark. Google knows too much. The price for these free tools, sharing the most private information about our companies and our users. Google isn't just providing a service, it's collecting vast amounts of information. It becomes this gatekeeper, this hub of data, which gives it immense power and makes it a target.
And it wasn't just web services. They went after Microsoft directly, didn't they? With Chrome.
Oh, yeah. Chrome browser launched in 2008. Boom, major competitor. Then Chrome OS in 2009, a free Linux-based operating system for laptops. The author puts it bluntly. Google was telling Microsoft, we can hurt you too, giving manufacturers a free alternative to Windows, possibly with a cut of ad revenue.
That's aggressive.
It showcases what the author calls their double moral approach.
Yeah.
They champion open source when it suits them, using its collaborative spirit, but then weaponize it commercially to wound the competition where it hurts most, market share. It's idealistic rhetoric mixed with ruthless strategy.
A paradox.
Exactly. And the paradox extends. Google, organizing all world information, is remarkably secretive about its own data. Try finding employee numbers by country or getting full access to their traffic data on Google Trends if you're a rival. Good luck.
Okay, so as Google built this empire, things got murky. The book's title, Desnudando, a Google, Undressing Google, it really tries to reveal some difficult truths, like calling Google the largest personal database ever created, holding our secrets, hobbies, tastes, everything. What's the big takeaway there for you?
Well, connecting the dots, Google isn't just search or ads. It's fundamentally an information company. It thrives on what it knows about each and every one of us. That data fuels its ads, obviously, but it also makes it a massive target for hackers, thieves, even governments. And there's this internal 2008 document the book mentions, marked internal and confidential. It apparently showed Google discussing how Google should use user information to increase billing.
To make more money from ads using our data.
Basically, yes. And Larry Page, who was initially hesitant about using cookies for privacy reasons, he gradually came around. Accepted the commercial exploitation of data, framed as improving user experience. The author describes hearing about this internal shift as, like, seeing your parents fight and scream. It sounds like a real turning point in their official stance.
It really highlights that searching without searching idea, doesn't it? Where Google predicts what you need, like suggesting anniversary gifts. It sounds helpful, maybe even philanthropic on the surface.
But the author urges us to read between the lines. It's about earning more money by knowing you better than you know yourself almost. And then there's Gmail. The author calls it one of the biggest Pandora's boxes a user can open. Every email, he says, is like a three-way chat, you, the recipient, and Google.
Even deleted emails might stick around for months for data extraction.
That's the claim. Which leads to how this data-driven profit motive clashes with, say, national interests, like taxes. The book details Google's creative fiscal policy, funneling European revenue through Ireland, then a Dutch financial boutique, then off to Bermuda, a tax haven.
Resulting in what kind of tax rate?
An effective rate of barely 1% of its income across the European Union, which, the author argues, creates unfair competition for local businesses and basically tramples on the tax regulations of countries where its users, you and me, live and pay taxes. We pick up the slack.
The numbers cited are wild. Only $672,000 in UK taxes on estimated revenues of $1.4 billion. $26,000 in Spain on potentially hundreds of millions. And their justification is they don't have servers there.
Yeah, that's the argument. The author just dismisses it as intellectually very weak. He suggests it might be legal, technically, but it's far from moral or fair.
Which brings us back to don't be evil. How did that hold up in practice? The China situation seems key.
Absolutely. Google enters China in 2006, agrees to self-censor content, gets criticized heavily by groups like Reporters Without Borders. Then, in 2010, they suddenly announced they're rethinking things, pulling back some censorship, presented as this brave moral stand.
But the author is skeptical.
Very. Views it more as a marketing and public relations campaign, Points out Google had low market share in China anyway and later renewed its license there. Suggests it was more strategy than principle.
Wow. So even the seemingly ethical moves might have calculated motives. And the hypocrisy. The Eric Schmidt story is amazing. CNET uses Google to find public info about him, address, salary, whatever. Stuff he argued only people with something to hide worry about.
And his response.
Blacklist CNET reporters talk about a double standard.
It really undermines that privacy argument, doesn't it?
Definitely. Okay, so Google's impact goes way beyond just us individuals or even countries. It's clashing with other tech giants. Microsoft, for instance. The author calls them first cousins, both wanting total control. What were those battles like?
Well, it's interesting how power shifts, right? Microsoft used to be the big, scary dominator, Windows, Office. But they kind of missed the boat on search. Google grabbed that. Then Google started hitting Microsoft where it hurt. Chrome OS versus Windows. The Chrome browser eating Internet Explorer's lunch. And mobile. Android versus Windows Phone. Big time. And Google buying Motorola in 2011. That wasn't just about making phones. It was about getting Motorola's 20,000 patents. It was a defensive move, really, to protect Android from patent lawsuits by Microsoft, Apple, Oracle, who were trying to charge license fees up to $15 per device. An IP war.
And the rivalry with Apple, that became the main event, didn't it, after being rivals with Microsoft for so long?
Absolutely. Steve Jobs famously said, they want to kill the iPhone, we won't let them. Google's own phone, the Nexus one, didn't quite kill the iPhone, obviously, but the competition got fierce. Tablets, too. And the irony the book points out, Apple and Google, bitter rivals, both getting called out by the U.S. Congress for mobile tracking issues.
Huh. What did Jobs say to that?
Classic deflection. According to the material, he said something like, we don't track anyone. The information about Apple is false. However, our competitor, meaning Android, does. Intense stuff.
Wow. Okay, what about clashes over content? Copyright seems like a major battlefield. Google News, Google Books.
Yeah, huge fights there. Publishers and authors sued Google for mass infringement with Google Books, scanning millions of books without explicit permission initially. There was a proposed $125 million settlement, but a U.S. judge rejected it, said it would give Google an unfair advantage, basically a monopoly over orphan works.
And YouTube. Bought for $1.6 billion in 2006. It thrived on unauthorized stuff early on, right?
Definitely. Google did invest $10 million in Content ID technology to automatically flag copyrighted material, give rights holders control. But the book highlights tutorials on how to bypass Content ID, readily available on YouTube itself.
You're kidding.
Nope. The author compares it to a nightclub owner making money while knowing illegal drugs are being sold inside, but claiming innocence. A tenuous line between morality and legality, as he puts it. Google seems comfortable there.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, what does this deep dive mean for us? For the regular users, the Google fans who genuinely like the products, it's pretty clear Google, this company wanting to change the world, is way more complex than the image they project. The author contrasts that Disneyland vibe of the Googleplex, free foods, scooters, massages, with the reality for many employees.
Yeah, things like long hiring processes, maybe lower salaries than expected, and this culture of management by fear that one early employee, Doug Edwards, described. Constant pressure, blurred lines between work and home, feeling like you're always being watched or ranked.
So it's the classic carrot and stick.
Seems like it. Attract talent with the promise of changing the world in this amazing workplace. But the ultimate goal is productivity control. Even the famous 20% time for personal projects. The book says many former employees, ex-Googlers, call it mostly marketing hype, not real.
So bringing it all together, what's the final takeaway? It really forces you to accept that Google's stuff isn't truly free, is it?
That's the crux of it. You pay with your information. As the author says, big companies aren't good or bad. They're money-making machines. They exploit customers for shareholders. And Google, despite its image, is no different.
So we just need to be more critical.
I think that's the challenge. The author's view is stark. Nothing free, and no one is innocent. Google provides amazing, indispensable services, no doubt, but we have to consciously weigh the price, our data, our privacy, and the bigger societal effects of concentrating so much power in one company.
That's a really powerful thought to end on. The next time you use a free Google service, maybe just ask yourself, am I okay with the price I'm paying with my personal information? Because, as we've definitely learned today, not all that glitters is gold, even if it seems so at first glance. Well, thank you for joining us on this pretty revealing deep dive into Google's hidden history. We really hope you've gained a new perspective on the digital world you navigate every single day.
Yeah, and we encourage you to think critically about all the companies you engage with. Really question the stories they tell. What stood out most to you today? What other questions does this raise about innovation versus privacy or corporate power?
Lots to think about. Until next time, keep digging, keep questioning, and stay well informed.